This is the continuation of Luminous by Sokka's first fangirl on AO3. This is Chapter 6, Triforce of Courage. As promised, Link faced off with Kato first thing in the morning. From the corner of his eye, he spotted Dorian's young daughters watching from outside the general store. The oldest girl, despite not being much bigger than her sister, held the younger one in her lap. If anything, Link was just surprised to see two small children up and about so early. "Those girls," Dorian said fondly. "They're always curious." Impa, sitting quite primly on the steps to her home, sipped at her tea and said, "Begin." The sparring went well, all things considered. Kato threw a hit, Link dodged. He managed to backflip away from a swipe of Kato's blunted sword. But here's the problem. He tired out fast. It was frustrating. He could be better than this. He knew he could be. If he was some legendary knight, he must have been brilliant once. Link had made it from the Great Plateau all the way to Kakariko with no memories and very few supplies. He'd fought plenty of monsters on the way. But monsters were not a trained and highly skilled bodyguard, and Link soon found himself out of breath. His limbs ached, his chest heaved, and Kato gave him a sympathetic smile that only made him feel worse. He felt disgusted with himself. This was hardly a promising start. Yet Impa nodded, a faint smile on her face. "Good," she said. "Now we know where we stand." They gave him a new shield, one of traditional Sheikah design. The Shield of the Mind's Eye, Impa called it. The Sheikah symbol was painted on it in gold. "It's better than that bokoblin thing you've been carrying around," she said with a dismissive sniff, throwing his weak little shield a look of contempt. Truly, it was quite a poor shield, but it was still a shield, and that was what Link had needed on his journey here. Impa burned it in the fire. Link couldn't help the stunned bark of laughter that escaped him. The next morning, Dorian pressed one of his own swords into Link's hands, an eightfold blade, much sturdier than the traveler's sword Link had taken from a moblin. "May it serve you well, Your Highness," he said solemnly. Link still wasn't sure how to react when people spoke to him like that, so he only nodded and quietly thanked him, avoiding eye contact. There was no point in trying to look regal and important. It was quite obvious that Link was, well, Link, amnesiac, tiny, totally out of shape. He wished he could run right to Hateno, start this quest in earnest. Maybe then he wouldn't feel so... Oh, he didn't know. Small? He felt small. He wanted to save Zelda. He wanted to save Hyrule. He wanted to avenge Mipha and his friends. And that, unfortunately, meant doing it right. When he and Kato took a break, Link, once again out of breath, Kato sporting a fresh bruise on his cheek, Kato cleared his throat and spoke up. "There is something Lady Impa asked me to warn you about, Your Grace," he said. "It is important." "More training?" Link asked wryly. "No, nothing like that. It is, well, to be blunt, there are those who swear their loyalty to Calamity Ganon, deserters of the Sheikah tribe. You see, Your Grace, we Sheikah were once a highly advanced tribe. Our technological advancements served all of Hyrule. It was us who created the divine beasts and guardians to protect the chosen hero and sacred princess during the first great calamity 10,000 years ago. But afterwards, the king at the time grew suspicious of our tribe. He feared we could overthrow him." "But that's ridiculous," Link protested. "Your people helped him." "Indeed, but that wasn't enough. We were ordered to abandon our technology and research, to live normal lives, or face total destruction." The injustice of it took Link's breath away. He could only stare at Kato in horror and pray his mouth hadn't dropped open. Kato shifted uncomfortably. "And so we did as ordered. We tried to live normal lives, or at least, most of us did. Some broke away from our tribe and declared the king a tyrant. They declared their independence and swore their allegiance to Calamity Ganon instead. They came to believe he would break and then remake Hyrule in an image they saw fit. These people call themselves the Yiga clan. the children of the inverted eye. Kato, usually so friendly, looked stern and even frightening. His gaze was dark as he looked at Link. They are a group of assassins and thieves devoted to the destruction of Hyrule, the royal family, and you. You are Hylia's chosen, destined to destroy Ganon, to destroy all that they put their faith in. You must be on your guard, Your Grace. They are masters of illusion and espionage. If the rise of the Sheikah Towers has not already clued them in, they will figure out you have returned soon enough. And when they realize, they will come for you. Yiga. It sounded familiar. Or maybe Link was just fooling himself, desperate to know something. A group of assassins will be looking for him. The incarnation of hate and evil personally wanted him dead. Monsters at every corner. Who didn't hunt him? I didn't do anything to them, Link thought, nonsensical as it was. Clearly it didn't matter about him as a person. It was what he represented. The hero could be anyone, and these Yiga would hate them anyway. Unless Link was on their side, they'd want him dead. He squeezed Link's shoulder, concern leaking past his harsh frown. Please, you must be careful out in the world. Be on your guard. Link swallowed down the lump in his throat and hoped he looked calm. He hoped it could pass for brave. Tell me more, he said quietly. What do they look like? What do they fight with? For that, Kato led Link to his house. There were piles of cuckoo feed piled against the wall. One cuckoo had escaped the pen outside and somehow managed to get inside to nap on Kato's couch. Even now, Kato paused to fondly pat the little bird and led Link to his bookshelf. He handed Link a large red book. On the first page was a drawing of a person dressed in a bodysuit, wearing a mask with the Sheikah symbol inverted. Their hair was pulled up in a spiked style. The inscription said, Foot Soldier. The next page showed a much bigger person in the same outfit, but standing with their arms folded. Even as an illustration, the person radiated contempt. Blade Master, they were labeled. A page followed about their weapons. Bows and arrows, sickles, short swords, something called the Earthquake technique. There were also, bizarrely, many mentions of bananas. Apparently it was a staple in the Yiga's diet. Well, odd diets or not, they clearly weren't to be messed with. Link closed the book and held it tightly to his chest. Thank you, he said. Kato clapped him on the shoulder and attempted a smile. He still looked worried. Be on your guard, he repeated. That evening, Link pored over the book, containing all the information the Sheikah had on the Yiga and how they worked. Some encounters described in the book were just plain weird. One traveler was attacked just for saying they didn't like bananas. However, on the very next page, it described the death of an entire family from Hebra. Apparently, the father of the family, a traveling salesman, had gotten too close to the Yiga hideout, somewhere in the Gerudo region. Despite the fact he never gave exact coordinates, he was still followed and killed, along with his wife and children. Paya read the book with him. She shook her head sadly. You know, a part of me almost feels pity for them, she said softly. It must be terrible to be so desperate as to follow Ganon. How desperate must someone be to support the destruction of the world? It was an interesting thought. Link turned back to the book. The top of the page read, Master Koga, leader of the Yiga clan, Ganon's acolyte. But there was no illustration. The few notes they had said he was mysterious, powerful, and that his followers were utterly devoted to him. That was all they had. What could cause someone to support an apocalypse? Was it merely carrying on the work of their ancestors, an ancient grudge passed down, or something else? Well, it wasn't like Link could ask. He doubted the Yiga would be keen to answer anyway. When Impa found them, she looked at the book and sighed. Kato told you, she said. Good. She sounded sad. She sat with them, her gaze flickering to the page, to the vague description of Master Koga. It seems I am constantly telling you of more dangers, she said, so I would like to share some good news to bolster your spirits. Link closed the book and looked at her expectantly. Paya looked equally curious. It is about Mipha's family. Your family, she said. The Zora live incredibly long lives, Link. They live for hundreds and hundreds of years. He immediately saw where she was going with this, and his heartbeat began to speed up. King Dorephan loves you as his own, Impa said gently. He knew you from childhood, and he was overjoyed to see you and Mipha wed. When Zelda held back the calamity, I went to speak with him, to inform him of your fate. He immediately posted guards around the Great Plateau. The entrance was caved in, but he didn't want you to wake alone. But there was no one there when I left, Link protested. There was just monsters, Impa finished sadly. Yes, I know. You told me how many there were. If I had to guess, the rise in monster numbers meant he had to summon his knights home. But rest assured, child, he loves you very much. Many Zora were shocked by yours and Mipha's relationship, but he was only ever happy for you. King Dorephan, Mipha's father, Link's father-in-law. Link couldn't remember him at all. He tried to remember something, anything, as Impa spoke, but there was nothing, not even a vague impression of a memory. Dorephan had sent guards to the Great Plateau. He didn't want Link to be alone. He worried about him, cared about him, and Dorephan was still alive. After you see Purah, Impa said, well, I will not tell you where to go first, but I think your family's waited long enough to see you again. Impa had marked the general location of the divine beasts on his map. One glowing yellow spot was much closer than the others, still far, but nowhere near as far as the Gerudo or Rito regions. The Zora, Varuta, Mipha. Oh, was all Link managed to say. His voice sounded weak and distant. Impa's smile was small, sincere but regretful. Give them my regards, she said, and my apologies once again. It was a goal to work towards, infinitely more important than fixing the Sheikah slate. Link would train. He'd regain some strength and health. He'd work on his skills, and then he'd go. Straight to Hateno, fix the slate, upgrade it as needed, and then he was off to Zora's domain. Mipha's home. His home. He'd get more answers there. He'd find people who knew him. He had a family. Filled with new determination, Link threw himself into training with new vigor. Kudos seemed taken aback by Link's sheer viciousness, but he grinned at Link, sharp and proud. Impa watched with shining eyes. Paya had her hands over her face, but watched from between her fingers, wincing at every blow that hit Link. Dorian called out advice, laughing when Link knocked Kato to the ground. I'd like to see you do better, Dorian, Kato called to him. I could, old friend. Dorian laughed. Kato swore at him quite cheerfully, and both men looked mortified when Impa cleared her throat. Gentlemen, she said mildly, must I order you to do laps around the village again? Apologies, my lady, Dorian said, blushing furiously. Link snorted, and Impa's ever-sharp gaze immediately turned to him. I'll make you join them, she said. Don't think I won't. Now, again, from the top. Kato rubbed a sore spot on his ribs, but got back into place. Link dug his heels into the ground and pounced as soon as Impa said go. It went like that for a week. Up early to train, break up for lunch, then train some more. Study Impa's notes on monsters with Paya, practice his archery, discuss the divine beasts and guardians with Impa. Rome said to be careful of the guardians, Link told Impa. But all the ones I saw on the plateau were dead. He had to admit they made his skin crawl. They were just empty husks, but when he first saw one, he wanted to vomit. The only thing that made him go any closer was that he spotted odd-looking screws and springs littered on the ground around them. His curiosity had gotten the better of him. He'd had to pass a few to get to a shrine, unlocking the bomb rune. But they were all dead too. Link remembered holding his breath, tiptoeing, and then frantically sprinting past them, filled with terror he couldn't understand. Impa shook her head sadly. Not all of them, she said quietly. Her gaze went distant. She stared at the far wall like she wasn't really seeing it. She gave a small shudder, and Link felt a stab of panic. Impa looked genuinely horrified. Not all of them, she repeated more firmly. And they are strong and so fast, damn near impossible to take down. Our ancestors designed them a bit too well. If you're unprepared, she trailed away, but Link heard the warning. If you're underprepared, you're dead. Unbidden, his hand went to his torso, resting over the scars there, hidden under his tunic. He felt sick. Link dreamed of fire that night. Fire, blood, and piercing dreams. A girl's voice bleating for something, for someone. When he woke up, he nearly fell off the bed. His heart was pounding, and he had to run to the bathroom to throw up. But when Impa found him and asked what was wrong, Link didn't have an answer. It was the start of his second week in Kakariko, a cloudy Monday morning when something new happened. Something Impa had apparently been waiting for. Link couldn't say what changed. He was stubborn as ever, so determined to get things right, to be strong enough to protect himself and everyone else. When Kudos slashed at him, Link dodged to the side and time slowed. Something flashed on his hand, something bright gold. In the back of his mind, Zelda spoke. Yes, good, now, Link, now! On instinct and adrenaline alone, he attacked, hitting at Kato in rapid-fire succession, all while Kato moved so slowly, like he was trying to move through molasses. Every time Link hit him, there was a flash of white light, like bursts of stars. As quickly as it happened, it stopped. Time returned to normal. Kato was sent flying as if by an impossible gust of wind, and nearly fell into the water surrounding Hylia's statue. The glow on Link's hand faded away in the blink of an eye. Link was left standing there, training sword still raised. For once, he didn't feel tired. He wasn't gasping for breath or shaking. He stood with his head held high, shoulders back, chin up, and proud. His blood felt like fire in his veins. He felt strong. What in Hylia's name? Dorian gasped while Kato stumbled to his feet. Good, Impa said. Link turned to her, lowering his sword. She was beaming, eyes bright. Pai's mouth was hanging open. Very good, Impa said, her smile growing. What was that? Link asked. Perhaps he should have been panicking at yet another unknown, but it felt right. Whatever this was, he'd done it before. He was sure he had. It was as familiar as his own heartbeat. That, dear boy, was the Triforce of Courage, Impa said. You may not be a sorcerer, Link, but the Triforce grants you power as Hylia's chosen. She tilted her chin up and rose to her feet. Whether skyward bound, adrift in time, or steeped in the glowing embers of twilight, just as the Master Sword is bound to your soul, so too is the Triforce of Courage. It will grant you some protection against magic and limited time manipulation, as you just saw. I believe you once called it a flurry rush. I need to do that again, Link said. The fire in his veins was fading. His familiar tiredness was creeping in. He was just a boy once more. And so you shall, Impa promised. She looked proud. You shall, but first, I believe it's time you met with Purah. As the sun rose, Link prepared to leave for Hateno. Impa stood by him as he climbed onto Errol's back. Once he was settled, she pressed a bag of supplies into his hands. Food, elixirs, and bandages. A few clicks of the Sheikah slate and the supplies were absorbed into it. Say hello to Purah for me, Impa said. And tell her to write more. It wouldn't kill her. Paya, standing a few paces behind him, waved shyly. "Good luck," she all but whispered. "Remember to check in," Impa said. "Don't leave me wondering how you are. Rest assured I will come find you and drag you back here if I must. I expect updates. You are not alone in this." "I know," Link said. "I will." After being so alone on the Great Plateau, Rome's company hardly counted, it still felt odd to be surrounded by people who wanted to help. Impa, Paya, Kato, and Dorian had done nothing but help since he had arrived. Even if he had to free the divine beasts by himself, he had people waiting for him, not just here, but in Zora's domain. Hateno first, Link told himself. Update the runes, fix up the missing parts of the slate, and then straight to Zora's domain. He wanted to meet Dorephan. He wanted to remember Mipha. He wanted to see where he'd lived once upon a time. "Thank you, Impa," he said. "And you too, Paya." Paya just smiled, looking a little pink and embarrassed. Impa reached up to take his hand. "We are here for you," she said. "I know you can do this." She stepped back, hands clasped tightly around her cane. "Now, off with you. Follow your heart and seize your destiny." She gave a sharp, decisive nod. "It's time." Link needed no further prompting. He gave a snap of the reins, and Errol broke into a brisk trot, hurrying up the hill. By the main gate, he came across old Nana, out on her morning walk. "Off to Hateno, Your Highness?" she asked. Link nodded. "Well, say hello to Dr. Purra for me. She was my mentor, you know." Her smile faltered. Perhaps I should warn you. Dr. Purra is an interesting woman." Paya had called her eccentric. Impa bluntly stated her sister was nuttier than the forest floor. Link looked at Nana expectantly, waiting for her to elaborate. She gave a delicate cough, clearing her throat. "I suppose you'll see for yourself soon enough," she said. "Good luck, dear. We're all rooting for you." At this rate, Link was expecting Purra to be a mad woman, cackling with drastic flashes of lightning behind her. What exactly was he getting himself into? Oh well, Nana was right. He'd see for himself soon enough. He waved to the old woman, and she gave a wobbly curtsy. Immediately flustered by the show of reverence, Link sped off. The rain hadn't stopped. It hadn't even slowed or weakened, not even once. If anything, Sidon feared the rain was only growing stronger. If this kept up, the dam would flood. If the dam burst, if their precious domain flooded, well, Zora belonged in the water, but it was still possible for them to drown. A tidal wave would certainly accomplish that, but beyond that, beyond them, were Hylian settlements. There was Wetland Stable. Their Hylian neighbors would certainly drown, and who knew how far such a flood would spread? When would it stop? And a flood could so easily cause landslides all throughout Lanayru, mud, trees, and rocks collapsing down and joining the chaos. The destruction it would leave in its wake was too terrible to imagine. It had been a month since Vahruta suddenly bellowed and began to pour this endless rain on them. Normally, the divine beast was quiet. Sometimes she would reign for a few days, but nothing on this scale. Sometimes she would bellow or pace the reservoir, but that was all. She was a silent, albeit threatening, presence. But then the downpour began. They expected it to stop, as it always did. It didn't. "It is Ganon," his father, Dorephan, said to him. "It must be. Princess Zelda cannot last forever." If Zelda was weakening, if Ganon was breaking free, there was no one to stop him this time. No other princess with goddess blood, no more champions, and Link was still hidden away in the Shrine of Resurrection. Who knew when he'd wake? Who knew what state he'd be in when he did finally wake up? If Ganon broke free, they were all doomed. But they wouldn't even need to worry about Ganon if they couldn't appease Ruta. Segin managed to hit her with a single shock arrow, and that slowed the water for about an hour. But they were Zora. They couldn't handle shock arrows. Even Segin, with his unusual tolerance for electricity, could only handle that one arrow. They needed help. They needed someone who could handle shock arrows. Someone Sidon could carry out to Ruta. They needed a Hylian. A friendly Goron had managed to make his way to the domain, and that would have been perfect, if only Sidon could carry someone of that size. The Goron couldn't swim, and Sidon couldn't carry him. That plan died in the water. Pun mostly not intended. So, a Hylian. But there were so few Hylian travelers these days. Perhaps they'd have to go to a village and ask for help. Just don't bring back any Sheikah, Muzu said with his usual bitter scowl. They cannot be trusted. Ruta bellowed again, and Muzu nodded as if it proved his point. Dorephan only sighed, so tiredly. He looked worn out. He'd been working non-stop to try and reinforce the dam, to try and think of a way to stop Ruta, and the strain was showing. I will bring back whoever is best suited for the job, Sidon said. If that meant returning with the Sheikah, so be it. Muzu hated the Sheikah with a passion, as did most of the elders. They never forgave them for the guardians or divine beasts. They never forgot Mipha and Link. When Sidon announced his plan, he was immediately beset by volunteers to join him. The Zora Prince could not go off alone, especially with so many monsters on the path to the domain. With so many volunteers, it was hard to choose, but he had to think rationally. He couldn't just take the entire royal guard. He needed a guard or two, yes, but he also needed fast swimmers and people who could put others at ease. Someone that wouldn't come on too strong and scare a Hylian away. In the end, he'd agreed to take Torfu, Leto, Groove, and Tula with him. Not too many and not too few, each of them skilled in their own ways, enthusiastic and charismatic. What's more, they could each handle themselves if monsters approached. While his companions went to prepare, Sidon waited before Mipha and Link's statue. Leto had designed it so long ago, when he was still just an apprentice himself. His sister and brother-in-law stood on a pedestal, side by side. Mipha lightly grasped her light-scale trident, smiling serenely down at the viewer. Even in stone, her gaze was soft and welcoming. Link had the infamous Master Sword, his hands wrapped around its hilt. His gaze was directed skyward, determined, silently fierce. Each of them wore their champion's garb, a fact that Muzu had protested against. Dorephan pointed out that being a champion was something to be proud of, not something to forget. Mipha and Link had dedicated themselves to Hyrule's protection and fell in the line of duty. That must be remembered and respected. At Dorephan's request, the statue of Mipha wore the delicate bracelet Link gave her, while Link wore the locket Mipha gave him. Courting gifts. Hazy as Sidon's memories of them were, he remembered they always wore them. He remembered sitting on Mipha's lap, gently tracing the little gems on the bracelet. He remembered Link tossing him in the air, the sun glinting off the locket. Help me, he prayed to them now, his sister and brother. Guide me. Dorephan had impressed upon him, again and again, that Link's memories may be gone when he woke. Sidon always told himself that was okay. He'd help Link remember, no matter what. One day, Link would come home. They couldn't bring Mipha home, but they could bring Link home. Then all would be well. Maybe then Dorephan would smile without grief in his eyes. Maybe, if Sidon could help Link, Mipha would be proud. But Link wasn't here yet. It could be another 100 years before he woke up. When the mysterious towers rose, Sidon excitedly asked if it meant Link was awake, but Dorephan hadn't been sure. Muzu dismissed the idea outright, claiming it was clearly the Sheikah causing trouble again. Sidon hoped it was a sign. He would cling to that hope with all his might. Prince Sidon? Leto's voice broke through his melancholy thoughts, calling him back to reality. Are you ready to leave? Sidon turned to Leto, Groove, Tula, and Torafu with a bright smile. Of course, he loudly cried. He struck his signature pose, and his friends all smiled, tension draining from their shoulders. He must be strong. He must be fearless. He must be like Mipha and Link. If he didn't fear, his friends wouldn't either. Onward, Sidon declared. As soon as they reached the end of the Great Zora Bridge, they dived off into the water and were swiftly on their way out of the domain. They had their plan. Now they just needed to put that plan into action. And pray help wouldn't come too late. Thanks so much to anybody who listens to this. I'm sorry if I mispronounced a couple of the Zora's names. I did do my best there, though. As always, I'm leaving a link to the original fic on AO3 down in the description. Please go leave kudos and comments for the original author if you liked this. I'll be back with Chapter 7 as soon as I get it done.